Hello, everybody. Today we have Ashley Gross, CEO of AI Workforce Alliance, in our show today, and I'm really excited to talk to her about AI agents and really talk about how businesses can use AI. Just to kind of give a quick introduction, she's actually the highest paid AI consultant in the market, according to Forbes. I would love to kind of hear more about how that happened. But she actually started in marketing, and she's also in education, edtech space, where she teaches classes on AI for leaders. So with that, I'm really excited to get started. Ashley, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for asking. How about yourself?
Great, great. Ashley, would love to kind of hear a little bit more of your background around how did you get into this space?
Sure. Serendipitously is the short answer. The long answer is I've been a marketer for over 10 years. And when I found out I was going to be a mom back in 2020, I knew that I needed to consolidate my work week from 40 hours down to 15. But
Mm,
the kicker was that I needed to have the same exact output, if not even better, in terms of quality. And there were no marketing tools in my tech stack that allowed me to do that. So I started exploring generative AI tools, specifically Jasper AI. I was
mm.
able to condense my work week, which in turn, when you have time to intentionally see what you're spending your time doing, then you can start to kind of silo in all those processes and workflows and start to be a lot more efficient, which is a buzzword that's thrown around a lot. But that's just what happens when you start using technology for its intended use. And then really it just snowballed from there. I wanted to show every single marketer how I was having an AI enabled approach to working, specifically marketing tasks. And fast forward to 2022, right before ChatGPT came on the scenes, the CMO for the enterprise that I worked for at the time told me that I could implement AI into the whole entire marketing org, which was a little over 100 people, and the sales org, which was over 200. And I just took the same exact approach that I had. And the overall goal was to automate the tasks that everyone either didn't enjoy or that were too time consuming so that they could focus on more strategic tasks or just tasks that brought them joy and made them like their jobs every day a little bit more. And the really cool thing that happened was within 3 months of implementing AI into that organization, we saw a major ROI point. And that point was that within 3 months of implementing AI, we actually overachieved our annual pipeline target. So for the whole entire year, we were given a target of $90 million. dollars. And that was all in converted pipeline that we needed to create. We hit 115 million. So superseded it by 25 million in 3 months, the same 3 months that we started implementing AI to solve these small problems that overall helped solve a business problem that existed in the whole entire organization. And once I saw that, I was like, yeah, I love being a marketer, will always be a marketer, but this is what I want to do because I can be an engineer to a certain degree and a marketer, but more importantly, I can tie a whole entire organization together over solving one problem and making the overall business better instead of these, department specific solutions where maybe marketing is thriving, but sales is, not doing as well. And marketing's like, well, we're bringing in the leads, and sales is like, right, but like where, how, when, like we don't understand. And that's not really a win for me. The win was that everybody felt better. They were enjoying their jobs a lot more. They were finding more efficient ways to work. And it was very clear very quickly that it helped solve cultural issues, but also it helped solve inefficiencies, which made everyone get along better. And that's really when you can start to make change together as a whole unit, is when you're all on the same team.
Amazing. Amazing. Ashley, what I want to start talking to you about is, what is AI and what is an AI agent? I know that's a big part of the work that you do is helping people educate. So how would you break it down?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be non-technical because this is, marketing's my background, and I'm not a technical person. And even if I was, I think I like to just use common language. So I'm going to break it down like this. Artificial intelligence is a category of technology. And within artificial intelligence, there's many different varieties, many different models. And so if we just think about artificial intelligence being the umbrella, then you can start to think about different functionalities. And so agents is a autonomous version of artificial intelligence, which means I put in a prompt, either via verbal cue or a text prompt, and it autonomously starts performing tasks just based off of that prompt. And I don't have to intercede. And a lot of folks I hear in this market get a little bit confused between automation and agent. And automation is similar in the set that you would give it rules and directions, and it would go perform a task that you wouldn't necessarily need to ride along for. But the difference is with an automation, you're giving it a subset of rules, and technology is not perfect. There's many, many gaps in it still. So if, for instance, you give it a set of rules and it goes to create this workflow and automate these tools, and one rule that you put in doesn't exist, it can't do anything. So it just stops thinking because it doesn't know what to do. You didn't provide it instructions. It doesn't know how to contextualize. It doesn't know how to fix itself. Whereas an agent, it does. It can actually help troubleshoot issues, again, autonomously. And so if I didn't give it a rule, for instance, I'll give you a great example of this. If I were to create an automation and then have an agent perform the exact same task of going into a piece of technology in my stack, like a Salesforce, and asking in my prompt to go into Salesforce and find my report that talks about the last 10 deals I closed last quarter. If I gave that instruction to my automation would do it as long as I listed every single tab, URL, function, filter that it needed to look for. If I missed one, it would not be able to complete, and it would either loop continuously, depending on how I set it up, or it would just give me an error code. Whereas an agent, if I gave it that same instructions, and perhaps I didn't explicitly tell it about one URL or one click or one filter that I needed to apply, it would probably figure it out without me having to provide that context, because it can sort through data in real time and find patterns and recognitions and scrape the internet at the same time for like help on tutorials. So same exact example, two different tools, two different ways that I would get it.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks for breaking that down. What I want to go into actually is for business leaders, right? And business stakeholders. A lot of our audience is our business analysts, project coordinators, project managers, and they work with business leaders or business stakeholders. What is the significance of the rise of AI and AI agents specifically
Yeah.
in businesses, and why should business stakeholders or business leaders care about this?
Sure. Not all AI tools are created equally. So let's just expectation set right away. But most AI features that are net new, at least, that are tied to an existing feature, HubSpots, Salesforce Einsteins, Asana AIs, the AI functionality is tied to the core product. So it is helping amplify and enhance the product. And if that product is good, then that's going to be a great automation built into the tool itself. And from a project management perspective, what you should be excited about and why you should be paying attention is these tools are saving you time. Now it's a new tool, and change management does take a minute. So it requires one, experimentation, someone actually going in there that is a subject matter expert to see how this tool changes this process or this communication, and being able to quantify those metrics. And then it takes enabling the rest of the team to follow that same process, and then consistency and sticking with it. So everything's a process and everything is learning. But, Asana AI, let's just talk about project management for a second, because this is the road you took me down. So I'm going to continue on it. Asana AI, you can now, because of their AI feature, you can take a call transcript in real time. So this call is being recorded. After this call ends and I get the call transcript and the recording, I could drop it into Asana and tell it to create me a project and not give it any other context other than this file of our call. And it would populate a project name or a portfolio name, whatever you want it to, tasks, subtasks, assign those tasks and subtasks out, give deadlines, give descriptions in the tasks. And if you just think about just that one feature alone for project managers, that's insane, because that's not usually the workflow that we have to go through. We have to have calls, communication, then input the tasks that people have to do, and then assign it, and then work actually starts to be done. So there's so many steps that get automated, and for the better, just by using that one AI feature. Now, when you talk about agents and how they're helping project managers, think about how that process that I just cemented out would look like, but done autonomously. So again, I hop on a call, right? As me, Ashley, not an avatar. We have a conversation. I end this call. My agent knows that as soon as this call gets uploaded to the drive, to the cloud recording file that it's shared on or stored on, it's automatically going to drop that file into Asana. It's going to ask Asana to populate it. So it's the same workflow. It's just being done autonomously. And so that's even more efficient because I'm not having to do anything. I can just start working instead of thinking, communicating, planning the work that I do before I do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Actually, I'm curious, like, so what you've done is, um, you really put yourself out there, right? Like you were a marketer, you got excited about it instead of being overwhelmed. And you said you're not even technical, right? You jumped in, you figured out some use cases, solved your team's problem, solved some of your customers' problem, and you went out there and you started, consulting with a lot of business leaders, showing how you implemented AI and AI agents. So you've talked to a lot of business leaders, right? So I'm just curious, where are business leaders at in terms of like implementing, how energized they are, what are some of their concerns? I'm just
Yeah.
curious. Um,
So my agency, we work with enterprises, primarily enterprises. And specifically, the clients that we have right now are not coming from backgrounds that you may think are ready to enhance their organization with AI. Our clients are mainly in healthcare, space, and government, which is wild because those are usually the industries that are more hesitant to change the flow of things. And that is mostly because of data security, privacy. There's a lot more at risk. And also on top of that, specifically with like space and healthcare, those have other outside governing bodies controlling what they can and can't say and in the channels that they can. And so there's lots of change management is what I'm trying to say. And even in those big enterprises, in those industries, I am seeing nothing but excitement and optimism and just, I would say, a real appetite for figuring this out. And honestly, like executives usually are a little bit inundated with so much that they get this like almost fear paralysis, I want to call it, of like, we can't, like they get overstimulated, right? Like when you have kids that are asking you a million questions and you're like, I cannot hear myself think. I feel like that's usually how executives are because they're just trying to maintain their whole entire department and they're responsible for so much. So they're like, even if it's going to make my life easier, like I can't even hear this conversation right now because I'm going to go insane. I'm not seeing that at all with AI, like nothing at all like that. I am seeing specifically VPs of marketing, CMOs, even CFOs, I would actually say, trying to align their organizations because they know that issues exist and they know that they haven't been able to necessarily solve it in the best way possible from within their own departments. And so they are more accepting of AI and the potential of it. And I think that the only thing that I would highlight as far as fear goes is I'm not seeing executives be scared of the technology necessarily. I'm seeing, if anything, in certain situations, executives being scared of their organization's quiet or non-existent opinions because they are ready to embrace it and they are ready to experiment. And they know the benefits and they're digging into the learning. But it's really hard when their organization doesn't have a usage policy or they don't have guardrails or you don't consistently see, C-suite members sharing what they're doing with AI. Because then even if you're excited about it, internally the culture is no one above your pay grade is using this technology or talking about using this technology. So maybe you shouldn't be using this technology. That's really the only place that I tend to see these little, bouts of fear. And they're not in enterprises that I consult for. I would say like this is just from my experience with teaching and hosting courses, the overall volume whenever I pull, my students who are executives on like, does your company have a usage policy? Do they have an enterprise plan for a tool? And it's still an astounding amount of no's.
Yeah. Actually, one thing that audience might have in their mind, or the resistance that they might kind of make up in their head is like, okay, what about safety and regulation, right?
Yeah.
Especially you're, talking to folks in the government. How are you getting past that concern and still generating this kind of momentum?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a lot of frauds out there in this space. It is booming and there's lots of money. So I think if you are going to hire AI consultants, like they should have the highest level security clearance and cybersecurity certifications. And not only that, because you can have all these things on paper and then not know how to applicably go about implementing this in a safe way. I would also just say like really make sure that the folks you're leaning on to give you guidance have done this. They can communicate what they're doing in ways that you actually understand, because ultimately, whoever pays for this technology, like they're responsible. So I could come into an organization tomorrow and roll out 3 tools. And then when my contract ends, whoever's budget those tools live in, they ultimately own it. And that's a whole responsibility. And so it's really important to not only see people out that have done this, but have internally rolled it out in their own organizations, because nobody should be coming in and just changing operations and processes and implementing technology without having a roadmap of how they're going to do it, strategy, communication, process documentation, a relationship and regular cadences with InfoSec, privacy regulations departments. There should be so many overlaying, conversations and circles. I'm trying to visualize like a mind map, if you will, of things that these people should be in charge of. Because when it comes to these conversations, they're really not complex, right? To get back to your question, we've probably all used Google search. Like we probably would be so terrified if anyone ever got a hold of our Google search, because there's so much information there. And in Google's privacy policy, they flat out say that your data will be stored for up to 7 years. A human reviewer will look at it at some point in time, and your data can be used to improve all of their models. So if you're just putting your information into Gemini, their AI tool, it doesn't matter. If you're just using Google searches, it doesn't matter. Your data is already to a certain degree not really yours and already being used for things that you probably didn't think about. So when you're thinking about AI, one, I would never recommend working with a vendor who has not been around and has brand reputation and has history. But also, if you know absolutely nothing about data security and privacy and you just want to make sure you're being accountable and holding yourself to the highest standard for safety, use AI to vet AI. Drop a policy into Anthropic, go to OpenAI's privacy policy, copy the URL, go into Anthropic, drop it in and say, as far as this privacy policy goes, explain this to me at a 5th grade grammar level. What do I need to worry about? What should I be prepared for? What are some questions? Like use technology for what it was supposed to do, which is make our lives easier.
Amazing, amazing. Actually, I want to go into a little bit of the implementation components. Like, let's say you, and the parallel, what I'm trying to help the audience learn is a lot of the audience is business analysts, business consultants, product owners within the company. So they are change agents and implementers, right? But in a different scale than you. So I'm just curious, what does the implementation look like? Like, how do you go and engage into a company? How do you assess the challenges? How do you understand their data? So kind of walk us through that process.
Well, one person can't know everything and they can't be good at everything. So I've niched down. So my 3 problems that I have playbooks for and know how to solve for using, AI, those 3 problems are lack of insight into the customer journey, lack of clean and enriched data, and then slow sales cycles. So those are the 3 problems that I solve for. Now, as we start to build out proof of concepts and pilot projects, and then we scale it out to the rest of the organization, inevitably we solve a problem, but then another problem kind of comes out that might, start stemming out. And so the problem might be slow sales cycles, but in the midst of solving for that problem with 25 small use cases per department, we're going to find other inconsistencies. And that's when we start to bring in other departments that are not just within marketing or sales, so that there's this broad cross collaboration, but also knowledge sharing that happens organically. And that's really what the change management piece is, because it's not about how fast can you go, how many proof of concepts can you, prove. It's how far can you take a whole entire organization together, because you're going to lose people. There's going to be people that are going at this in different ways. But if you only move, 3 players forward and you still have a whole entire organization that hasn't caught up yet, you created a whole other silo, a whole other problem
Mm,
on top of the
yeah.
problems that you already were trying to solve for. And so that's how I
Yeah.
holistically just approach it.
Awesome. So I'm trying to visualize this. So you're going into the organization, you're starting with the customer journey map, and that's where you understand, okay, how is customer flowing? Where is the friction point? What are the pain points? Where are the repeated tasks that could be automated? So you're just going to maybe one or two teams or looking at certain persona and then understanding, okay, like we see some opportunity and you're building relationship. You're also, talking to other parts of the product. Um, and maybe let's just double click a little bit around like the sales cycle, right? Like for that
Mhm.
example, like how how does agent like what is an agentic workflow
Yeah.
for actually solving that problem
Yeah.
with as much as detail you can go into.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just one agentic workflow. There's so many of them. The thing is, you have to build a foundation. So you change one thing at a time, and you
Mm,
always only change one variable, never more than
mm,
one. And so
yeah.
how you go about doing this for slow sales cycles are you always have to make sure that your data is clean, enriched, and properly able to be used. And
Mm,
so you go back to the basic blocks of like, okay, we're going to create an agent that can actually go through our CRM, make sure that everybody's opted in, that all of the emails are within the last 3 months and we're not using data sources that are outdated or inefficient.
mm,
You just start from building block one. And then when you can confidently say like, yes, our data is clean and it's enriched and it's good to go, then you say, okay, great. How do you know when these prospects visit your website? If you don't know, that sounds like a job for an agent, and the agent can build
mm,
a code that sits on your landing page. And then you just have to set your parameters for what does your ideal customer look like. And then
mm,
every time that ideal customer goes on to your website, then it sends off all these signals and your agent puts it in whatever formatting you want, whether that's an email, an Excel sheet, back to your HubSpot, whatever, any CRM. I'm a little biased and bullish on HubSpot because I've been
yeah.
a user of them for a long time.
Yeah.
But you just kind of start with that mentality and you work your way up from there, because then you have incremental wins and you can also check issues off because you don't know what the problem is going to be. And there's 100 solutions minimum that could be used to solve for that. So really
Mm,
you're just trying to change one thing and build up one agentic workflow at a time. So you can start crossing off, okay, lack of clean data was not a reason that they have slow sales cycles. If it's not being able to track, engage when their prospects are on their website, let's cross that off and try something else. Um,
mm,
until you eventually find what one of the problems is. And it's usually something along the lines that gets missed because somebody that set up the
mm,
tagging or the JavaScript on the landing page, they don't work at the company anymore. And they didn't communicate that they need to update the JavaScript, or it's always something small that somebody has missed along the way. And really, it's your job to build agentic workflows so that you can start crossing things off rapidly to figure out what those small silos in communication and processes are, because there's always.
nice. Yeah, no, I've actually seen a demo of the talk that you did where you showed your flow. So yeah, you're creating these agentic flow, you're identifying these bottlenecks, these areas for improvement, and then you're not stopping, right? You're going all the way. You're finding as many use cases as you can to create value for the organization. And um, yeah, though that's awesome. There is a content out there that you've actually done a masterclass on how to set it for your own business. So
Yeah.
I recommend the audience to. I'll put a link to that as well. Um, maybe let's just talk about scaling AI agents. Like
Sure.
how do you think about this? What does that look like for an enterprise?
As far as scaling goes, you always have to keep in mind you're going to have to maintain these. So everything that you set up needs to be maintained. One person cannot be maintaining everything, and almost never can the maintenance be done in-house. And what I mean by that is this cannot be done in conjunction with someone's role. This is a role solely on its own.
Mm,
And so when you think about scaling agentic workflows and agents, one of the pieces is you cannot underestimate the enablement and the education piece. You cannot underestimate it. You have to have documentation. I really like to lean on tools because I like to just start a Teams call and record and transcribe myself actually going and building the workflow. So there's one, a video tutorial of how I did this so that if when I leave something breaks, they have something to go off of again. But then while I'm recording that call and actually building the workflow and doing the things I need to do, I use a tool called Scribe. There's a bunch of variants of this tool, but right now I like Scribe. And every single time I click a button, it documents it and there's a screenshot. So now we have technical documentation and we have a video workflow of what I'm doing. And then after that, all I have to do is one, test it, make sure it works. And then two, bring in a small group of subject matter experts, beta test them to make sure that they can use the same exact prompt I did in Copilot to populate a Power Automate automation. And then from that automation, their agent knows how to run it. That's just one cherry picking example. But that's exactly how I would do it, is like not underestimating the enablement and the education needed, and then also have a maintenance plan before you ever start to build. One reason is because usage is something that I feel like there's a whole other learning that could be like a whole podcast session on itself. But the bottom line is, if you don't know what you're doing and you are building automations and or agentic workflows, it can get very expensive very quick. And you do not want to be the person at your company that all of a sudden finance gets a bill for $10,000 and they're like, what have you been doing? And the person's like, I don't know. I built a workflow and makes this efficient. And they're like, right, but like, who's going to pay this bill now? So maintenance plan, make sure that it's subject matter experts, make sure that you are either internally using people that have, the qualifications for this, or you're seeking them out. That's another thing when it comes to scaling, is like, agents are not agile. Like, agile marketers are not automation agent builders. They're just not. They think about things the same way, but they have to know where to go and where to turn things on and how to communicate what they're doing in ways that other people understand. And there's a little bit of coding and nuance that goes with that.
Awesome. And actually, I'm just curious. So in all these engagements, right? How are you thinking about measuring ROIs? Like, because at the end of the day, you're showing them here's a
Yeah.
practical, what I deliver, and you opened up with creating $150 million in pipeline value, right? So walk us through like your framework for like measuring
Sure.
outcomes.
I would say whenever we're in the proof of concept or pilot project phase, it's quantitative. And I give them options, right? So for every use case, I give them a template where there's multiple quantitative metrics that they just have to fill in, and they get to pick the two. Because one, that teaches them how to actually look at things. It's almost like when you write a resume and you're like, attended board meetings, like put on, talks. And it's like, right, but like, what did that do? So it gets people to understand how they should be thinking about this technology and outcomes. And then when I moved to scaling out to the rest of the organization, that's when I went qualitative as well as quantitative. And I think that that's the easiest way to do things, because you're not spending so much time measuring every little thing when you're in the proof of concept and pilot. It's more so like, do they get it? Does there need to be more education? Does this work? And like, when I brought this out to my beta group, did they break it? Like, was it easily breakable? Because if it was, I didn't set it up very well and I need to go back to square one. But then when we scale, I want qualitative. I want to know the impact this is having. I want to measure everything. I want to know, when we started this project day one, how many people were using this workflow or any workflow compared to now, and put some ROI on it.
Awesome. Um, Actually, I'm curious, like where's this going? Like evolving role of AI agents, like extrapolate over the next, 2, 3, 4 years. What are you betting on?
I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would say I see a lot more net new roles coming out of the works, marketing engineer being one of them. So folks that have a specific domain expertise, or they're coming from industries that they know how to solve problems for that are unique to those industries, they're going to thrive whenever the AI agents and the agentic workflows become more approachable and there's more education out there and enablement sessions available, because it really does take having that workflow and having that live in your brain already while you're using the tool to be able to tell whether these things are actually efficient or not efficient. There's not an agentic solution for everything. There's not a replacement for AI in every scenario. And so it's going to be a lot more people skills that are required to just be able to kind of sort through what's good and what's bad really, really quickly. Because then if you get sucked into exploring and experimentation, regardless of what the AI tool, offers you, you're just going to waste your time.
Yeah. Um, my other question is, Ashley, like 21 years old, Ashley, somebody just coming out of college, is not a engineer or anything, somebody who's got good business sense is really wanting to like build a career for themselves, what's your
Yeah.
advice in this space?
Well, first, ask yourself if you like the industry you're in. Ask
Yeah.
yourself if, with the role you have now, what do you like and what do you not like about it? Because the title is just a title, but how you spend your day to day really does matter, and it does motivate you a lot more than you might think it does. And then I would say, okay, if you like the industry that you're in, and you like, the things that you do in your role, and maybe you just want to incorporate and learn how to use generative AI tools, automations, agents, and make a foolproof career for yourself, you should be optimizing tools in a productive way. And what I mean by that is you can start off just optimizing, a chat GPT or a Claude and not do anything else for like 3, 4, or 5 months. Just set a timer and set yourself accountability layers where you say, okay, here's a tool. I'm going to optimize every single feature that this tool has, assuming that this is the tool that is best for the industry and the role that you're in, and learn how to use every single feature. There's still tools that every day we have been using for years that are coming out with AI features and functionalities where if you weren't using Salesforce before Salesforce Einstein, God help you, because it's not going to get easier now. Same thing with HubSpot. And it's the same thing with a lot of these tools. So optimize what you have, be intentional with your time and how you're going about solving it, and then be quick to pivot if it's not offering you the solution that you need. Having that mentality is going to take you a lot further than me suggesting a specific course or a pathway, because it really is people skills and experimentation and decision making that are going to be able to give you a foolproof career in this field.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ashley. With that, I think this is a wrap. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure the audience is gonna love it too. Any last words you wanna share?
This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. So I would encourage everyone that might not be as confident or might be thinking, everyone else has this figured out and I don't. Stop looking around at what everyone else is doing. The internet has a great way of magnifying everyone's accomplishments, and you don't get to see like what people are actually doing behind closed doors with this technology. So keep your head down and keep working on it for yourself. It's going to drive you a lot faster.
Awesome. Ashley, I have one more question for
Yeah.
you. So you do teach a live class or a self-paced asynchronous class where you take people through how to build AI agents, how to understand how to do business consulting with AI. So kind of talk to us about, what's under the hood, like what is that program? Who is it for? Why should people be excited about?
Sure. I teach a variety of courses. I've got something for everyone. So I've got optimizing generative AI, agents, automations. The specific course is how to build an AI agent to automate go-to-market. And that encompasses everything. And so just starting off by automating how you collect leads, how you collect customer reviews, building off of that. We really take the time to start by building an automation. So you actually learn how an automation works. And then we build agentic workflows, because how you configure automations does really help you when you're building out agentic workflows. And so there's a bit of a basic building block foundation. And I think it's taught in a way, at least my hope is that everybody sees the value in it and they are not scared away by the technology, because it's very digestible. And there are 8 workflows that we build. And so you truly do automate everything from how you get in front of a prospect to actually closing that deal without replacing you at any point in time. So there's not any piece of it that is automating sales, conversations, no sleazy, like personalized LinkedIn DMs, like none of that exists here. It's really, I should kind of rebrand the course to just say like how to be a human being, but like more efficient for go-to-market activities. Because that's really what it is. It's all these automations and augmentations by AI agentic workflows that make you the best you possibly can be, so you can close that deal in a go-to-market sensibility. Because if you're inundated with all this busy work, you're going to suck when you get on that discovery call, and you're probably not going to close that deal. And there's a million things that you could have done instead to keep the humanity in you and to keep yourself being, as optimized as you possibly can be.
Amazing. I'm taking that class. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap with this episode. Thank you for listening till the end. We hope these podcasts are providing value on your Agile journey. If you haven't visited our website, theagilecoach.com, we highly suggest you for other courses and supporting material on your journey. You can also get access to our self-paced courses or learn more about the live training that we provide to become a Scrum Master, Product Owner, Product Manager. With that, we will see you on the next episode. Love and best wishes from the Agile Coach.